All right, so tonight for Streams, Pods, and God, which is a segment we do on Retro Rewind Plays for Modern Mondays, I'm going to be trying something a little different. I'm Francisco Ruiz, by the way, in case you're not aware. I'm going to be trying something a little different where I'm actually going to hit on each of these bits of streaming, podcasting, and God. And sort of the theme or the topic is going to be how long, as in I'm going to be covering how long should I stream when I do, like streaming tonight. How long should this stream last? I'm also going to talk about, for podcasting, how long should my podcast episodes be? I mean, I see some people like Hardcore History are like 3-4 hours long, or if not more, and other ones like Grammar Girl have podcasts that are like 5 minutes. So how long should my podcast be? And finally, for the God section, I'm going to talk about how long should I pray. So those are the topics we're going to be hitting. And I'm going to end my turn and see what happens. But let's start off with the first one, which is how long should I stream when I do? So this depends. This depends on a few things. Mainly, what is your motivation in streaming? For instance, if you're streaming just to stream for your friends, like to get clips or to show your friends how you play a game, then really you can stream for however long you want. I mean, as long as it's fun for you, that's how long it should be. It shouldn't really be any more or less than that. But if you're trying to actually stream to do it either more as more of an enthusiast or professional, then there are a couple of other things to factor. If you're new to the streaming world, like it's something that you haven't really done much of, but you want to get into it, then how I would suggest starting, and I'm actually going to use this one right there. How I would suggest starting is by, first off, stream as long as you're able to. And with the caveat that, let's say you can stream, whenever you do stream, you can stream for 2 hours. Okay. Or let's say you have the time to stream for 4 hours. Let's say you have that amount of time. That's great, but you also have to keep in mind if this is something you want to pursue more professionally, you have to keep in mind that you have to have the time to also review what you stream, because you're only going to get better by looking at your past recordings, whether it be on Twitch or YouTube or wherever you're streaming. You want to see how you're doing so that you can, like I said, get better. Because unless you have a ton of people watching you right out of the gate, who are gonna give you feedback, it's gonna be really hard to know whether what you're doing is on the right track or not. And I just realized this guy is gonna die now, and that's no good. So we're gonna reset this turn and try something else. Now, if you've been streaming for a while professionally and you sort of have a good sense of how you stream, not that it wouldn't be a good idea to still only stream the amount of time that you can both stream and also review what you've streamed. So let's say go back to that 4 hours, double that to 8 hours. If you have 8 hours to set aside for streaming for each time you stream, then stream for 4 hours. If you only have 2 hours, stream for 1 hour and then review that. And that's when you're early on, that's fine. You're just practicing. It's okay that it's smaller. I've heard the sweet spot, though, once you've gotten to the next level where you're more comfortable streaming, you've been doing it a while, is to stream for about 3 to 4 hours. Now, that's something personally I don't do. It's about 2 hours is the length that I typically stream. And that's unfortunately just because that's what my schedule allows for. And I mean, you have to consider your other responsibilities, especially if this isn't your profession. Even if you would like it to be part your profession in some or in part, it's still not necessarily something you're going to be able to do. Now I think I'm going to change my mind and do these guys. So you have to keep in mind your other responsibilities, of course, even if you're only doing it sort of as an enthusiast. But if you have more comfort with streaming, you've been doing it a bit longer, now you could sort of get into the phase where you are trying to stream for however long you're responsibilities allow, and if you can push yourself to stream a little bit longer, I would suggest doing that, because maybe that last hour, it also depends on where you live and what time zones you're hitting when you stream. But if you could hit that last hour, maybe you might be able to attract a viewer who wouldn't otherwise be streaming. And that's actually, as an example of this, a couple times ago when I was streaming, I think it was Legend of Zelda, though it may have been Into the Breach. A recent follower, I think his name's Sony Microsoft Nintendo Inc. I could be getting that wrong, but I was streaming much longer than I normally would have been. I usually would have stopped streaming maybe half hour to an hour before I did that night. And that's the time span when he came on, he or she, I don't really know yet. He came on to check us out. So it's really, if you can stream a bit longer, then do that. So for how long you should stream, it depends on what your motivations are. But if it's just something you're doing to just as a fun thing to do, stream as long as it's fun. If it's something you're starting off as, stream for however long you have, however much time you have to stream, divide by 2, because you're going to need that streaming time and then the time to review what you've streamed. And then if you've been streaming for a while, are more comfortable with it, have sort of a sense of what you want to do, stream the amount you have set aside. And if you can push it a little bit longer, like let's say a half an hour or an hour, do that to be able to attract more people and build more of a sense of a community, and just it also gives you more practice. It's sort of like when you're if you exercise or work out, some days you just want to push yourself a little bit further because that'll be where you get some extra gains. Not all the time, but every so often. Hey Dale, welcome to the stream. We're currently doing Streams, Pause, and God, and we're about to move on to the next section. We just talked about how long should I stream when I do, and now we're going to talk about, if you're a podcaster, how long should my podcast episodes be? And this is kind of a big one because it's so varied. You have podcasts, like I said, like Hardcore History, which is, it could be like 4 or 5 hours. I've never personally listened to Hardcore History. I just know it's super long, but people love it. People love hearing about it and learning. So you have podcasts like that. Then you have other podcasts. I believe one of them's name is Grammar Girl, who she does like really short, like word of the day podcast talking about like a word, and those don't last very long. So how do you know how long your podcast should be? And really what it is it's however long it needs to be to do justice to the content you have. I know that that's kind of a lame answer, but think about it this way. There's a podcaster I listen to pretty regularly named Dave Jackson, who does School of Podcasting. And he has this, he tells this story of, he has this person who was coming to him and said, Dave, how long should my podcast be? Or I'm worried about my podcast length. And he said, well, how's long your podcast? And the guy says, oh, it's like 3 hours. And Dave's like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. And the podcaster says, yeah, I know, my listeners want it to be longer. And Dave's like, what? Longer? Well, it turns out his audience is a bunch of farmers who they're on their plow all day, or I don't know if that plow's not their tractor, probably a tractor, probably not riding a plow. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not a farmer. If you are, let me know. But that's what they're doing. And so I guess I'm going to take out this guy. So they have all this time and they want longer episodes. And if it's content that's enjoyable for them, all the better. I mean, for me, I know I love it when I'm listening to podcasts and I don't want to stop. I don't want, I want to keep, if I'm doing chores, I want to find another chore to do because I want to keep listening to the podcast. So, but on the same token, if you just have a bunch of filler that's really doesn't mean much to anyone, and you're not really expressing what your content should be to its fullest, then you're just wasting people's time. And if you had fans, then they'd probably be annoyed by you. So it's a balance of figuring out how much content you have and how long should the podcast be to justify the content. Hey, Rugged Warrior. And Dale says, how long did it take for you to find your voice? Oh, you know what? Well, if I forget, bring that up when we get to the Q&A after this main section, Dale, but that's a great question. And then Rugged Warrior says, hello. And we're currently doing Streams, Pods, and God, Rugged Warrior. We just talked about how long should my podcast episode be. If you're a podcaster and are wrestling with this, or you're thinking about starting a podcast, you're wrestling with, well, how long should my episodes be? We just talked about that, and it's really based on your content. Before that, we talked about how long should you stream for. We mentioned that depends on sort of your motivations. Now let's talk about more. We've hit the streams, we've hit the pods. Now let's hit the God here. And let's talk about how long should I pray? Now, this is one I was thinking, you know what? I don't know. Let me research this. How long should I pray? And there's different views, of course. But I think the main one that you sort of come to is in Paul's letter to Thessalonica? The Thessalonians. I'm trying to sound all in the know. But he writes, this is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 16 through 17. Rejoice always, pray without ceasing. So that's the main thing we're touching on. Pray without ceasing. If you look at the lexicon for that word, which I forget what the Greek is, but it can also be translated incessantly. So pray incessantly. So pray without ceasing. In everything give thanks, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. So this is a great verse for analyzing how we should pray, because if you look at the start of that, it says rejoice always, and right after pray without ceasing. In everything give thanks. So if you hear, okay, how long should I pray? Well, I should pray all the time. How am I supposed to find what to pray for if I'm praying all the time? Well, one way to do it is to be grateful and think about things you could be grateful over. Whether it's, I'm always grateful I get to stream for you guys. I'm grateful when I get to breathe. Sometimes I'm thankful that I can breathe, especially when I'm not sick. Oh my goodness. And if I think I'm about to get sick, I take deep breaths and enjoy how it feels, air entering in through my nose and out my mouth, unobstructed by any phlegm or coughing or anything like that. It's just so nice. And I'm thankful for that, or be thankful for your friends or your family. So you can always find something to be thankful for. Yet there's still this component. I don't know if you guys are like me, but it's like, well, yeah, but I have all these other things to do. How am I can't just be praying all the time. I got stuff to do, Francisco. And that's decent. However, I want you to think, you may think you don't have time to pray necessarily. There are other things to do. And certainly we worship God in other ways. It's not just through praying that we do that. But when we do pray, or when we're grateful, I'd say, let me step back. If we're looking for something to pray over, we can be grateful and thankful to God for what he's given us. But if we're trying to figure out when to pray, well, I'd say think of God like your cell phone. I mean, like, what sacrilegious thing did I just step into? God's is my cell phone? Let me try to explain. So, you know how I'm maybe you're not like me at all, but I know if I'm bored or if nature's calling, I usually pick up my phone to answer. Not to be too graphic there, but I use my phone when I'm bored, and it's like, okay, check Twitter or check Facebook or check any geek news that's out there, or maybe I play a game. I like to play Clash Royale, or sometimes my phone's in my pocket and I hear a buzz. I got a notification. I gotta check what it is. Okay. So all these times where you're going to your phone to either fight your boredom or to check out what's the latest or what have you, those are really all great opportunities to actually turn to God and just take a moment to say, God, what are you thinking right now? God, I'm stressed about this thing and I'm trying to avoid it. Or God, help me to listen to your spirit better. Just all these different moments throughout the day. I know I have where I reach for my phone, and not that looking at your phone or using your phone is a bad thing, but those are great opportunities to take to ask God for help and to pray to Him. So, and that's something that just occurred to me today. Really, I was reading something about prayer and like, how do you constantly stay online with God? And it's like, oh wait, online. I'm always online with my phone. Oh, that's an interesting corollary. So it's not like this is something I've been practicing for a long time. I could stand to do something like this way more. Oh, darn it. Well, that's okay. He's done attacking. But that would be how long should you pray? Ideally, you pray without ceasing. But I think if you're like, well, okay, I have to do other things. I can't just be praying. If you're worried about that, then first off, I won't worry about that. First off, God is definitely graceful. He understands that you have to focus on other things. You can't strictly focus on Him. He can certainly always be in your periphery and you be doing things for Him, whether you're working or playing, or you can be in that. We've talked about worship before and what that looks like. Well, actually, that was on bonus content, so we haven't talked about it on stream before. But I would say, if you're worried about not praying enough, before you reach for your phone, whether it's in the morning or during the day, go in the bathroom and take a moment to pray to God over something in your life, whether it's of Thanksgiving or something else. And I bet you'll end up praying a lot more than you are. And maybe that'll help you toward, I mean, no one's ever going to be perfect at this, but help you toward praying without ceasing. So tonight we talked about, for streams pausing God, how long should I stream when I do? And we said that really has to do with what your motivation is. We talked about how long should my podcast episodes be? And that depends on your content. But we talked a little bit about how to judge that. And we talked about how long should you pray for? And really you should always be praying, especially if you're praying in Thanksgiving. But if you're struggling with that, at least pray whenever you would reach for your cell phone. And hopefully you'll be practicing that. I'm hoping me practicing that, I'll be more in tune with the Spirit and with leadings of the Spirit, and I'll be like getting a notification from God. So that's what I'm hoping for. Hopefully that's not too sacrilegious. Anyway, thank you for listening to the Streams Pausing God. And now, if you enjoy this content, please like, share, and subscribe. And now we're going to go on to the Q&A. So you can check both these out later on YouTube.